Acknowledge if you may, please.
And why?
Right. Thank you, everybody. I think you're ready to go. Thank you, everyone, for coming along to the July Council meeting. I'm the Mayor, Darryl Warren. I welcome you here tonight to our meeting. Thank you. I'd like to make the following usual acknowledgement. I would acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting and pay our respects to their elders and to the elders from other communities who may be here today. I'd probably make a special welcome. I'm sure it's Bobby Nichols.
Yes.
To come along. We have met online, but it's great to see you in the flesh, so to speak. So thanks for coming along and joining us for our meeting this evening. So thank you, everyone. We'll get underway. So you have an apology for tonight's meeting. Councillor Stewart there is an apology this evening. I also have an apology from Councillor Simpson. Confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. Council, we have a recommendation the council adopt the minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, the 8th of June 2022, and the council adopt the minutes of that council meeting held on Wednesday, the 29th of June 2022. That's our budget meeting. Do I have someone to move that recommendation, Councillor?
Happy to do that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mill to move. A seconder, Councillor Getley. Any opposition, councillors? Thank you, councillors. That's carried. Point 4, requests for leave of absence. Do we have any?
I have none, Mayor, but I don't know if you may have any at this stage.
No, I do not have any at this stage. Any other councillors requesting leave of absence? Thank you, councillors. Point 5, declaration of jury and conflicts of interest. In accordance with section 132 of the Local Government Act 2020, councillors who have a conflict of interest in respect to a matter being considered at this meeting must A, disclose the conflict of interest in the manner required by the Council's Governance Rules 2020 and B, exclude themselves from the decision-making process in relation to that matter, including any discussion or vote on the matter at any council meeting or delegated committee and any action in relation to the matter. Councillors, do I have any disclosures of pecuniary conflicts of interest? Councillor Getley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I will declare a conflict in 8.2.1 and I'll fully explain that conflict when we get to that section.
Thank you very much, Councillor Getley. Question 6, questions from the public. Well, surprise, surprise, we do have some questions from the public, which have been provided in accordance with our governance rules. So I do have questions from Mr. Kevin O'Day, Robbie Burramunda Knight, and Robbie Burramunda Knight. So, Mr. O'Day, I do see you in the audience this evening. Yeah. Would you like to come forward and direct your question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My question is very simple. It's regarding the costings from the Southern Fauna and Ecology Draft Report from last July, which was prepared at a cost of $10,000. I'm just submitted a response to that regarding the costings in that report, which I dispute, but I haven't heard anything back. So I'm a bit concerned that a year has rolled by and nothing's happened. And it's only a draft report. It'd be good if we could sit down and have a chat with the interested parties.
Okay, Mr.
Just to resolve that.
Staff have provided me with some background in response to that particular question.
Right.
We're working with the Department of Environment, Land and Water and First Peoples State Relations on the matter. Right. We are in the process, I suppose, of calling a meeting which they will assist us with. And when that meeting's called, we will issue an invitation to yourself.
Thank you.
To come along and be part of that meeting. That's sufficient.
Yes.
Yep,
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Good luck.
Now, we have a question from Robbie Burramunda Knight. Robbie is not in attendance. Cheryl, do you want to?
Yes, thank you.
Come forward.
Robbie unfortunately is ill tonight. He was coming from Chickafoot with his family, but he has asked if the question may be asked by Mr. Bobby Nichols or myself on behalf of him.
Well, I'm comfortable if you want to ask the question, if Bobby
Thank
wants to
you.
ask the question. Yep.
So this is a question in relation to Lake Tyrrell. What is the proposal for council to protect the unique significance and integrity of Lake Tyrrell? Given that A, the Murray Allen infrastructure has already commenced right on the shores of Lake Tyrrell, and B, the Shire's unanimous support and approval of the reinstatement of the Mallee Rally, albeit on private land adjoining the lake. When will the Shire broker a meeting of First Nations people as per our letter of the 9th of March? So we wrote to council on behalf of First Nations people on the 9th of March. We have not yet had a reply in respect of the matters for Tyrrell and Charlton. There's been a form of reply from the CEO, kind letter, and you basically set out what's been happening with the management plan for which approved. But there are still issues really in relation to the 9th of March letter.
Right, I'll do the best to answer those particular questions. I think you're referring through there to the Dr. Vincent Clark report about Tyrrell, which was commissioned by First Nations and Health. We're still awaiting the outcome of that report. I queried staff prior to the meeting. We're expecting a presentation from the regional director and staff at a further briefing, probably in August maybe, or down the track. So we haven't seen that report. That it went out for public comment and for feedback. Now, this is, as you would understand, this is not our report.
Yes.
So that's been put together by Doc. When that report is available, we'll be very keen to find out from Doc how they will use that report, because I think that would answer some of the issues in regard to the future, I suppose, protection of Lake Tyrrell, as it's referred to. So we're keen to see what they're saying in its final format. So we're still much in the dark at the stage until that report has been released by Doc after collating all the comments from all parties.
So the issue is, though, that the Vincent Clark report was a conservation management report, not a cultural heritage management report. And so the Vincent Clark report did not touch on cultural heritage matters in the same way that a cultural heritage management report did.
Well, I can only respond to that in terms of that's the report that was put together by First Nation Relations and Health. So we only respond to that as, I suppose, we held the money, we didn't direct the report. So I think that's a matter that needs to be taken up then in regard to the thrust of those particular issues.
The other matter, sir, is this, that the Murray Allen
I'm just coming to
infrastructure.
that.
Okay.
So now, I'm glad you asked the question about the Murray Allen development. Back in 2017, this council issued a planning permit for a development on private property, which is Murray Allen's private property. That planning permit was to develop, I suppose, a caravan park and accommodation on his private property abutting Lake Tyrrell. That was a legally valid planning permit. In 2021, First Nations Relations issued a stop work notice on that project. To date, that stop work notice is still in place, and there has been no outcome as to the works that I suppose were directed to be undertaken towards Mr. Allen. So he was directed by First Nations to undertake a cultural heritage study. We do not have the outcome of that study, and certainly Mr. Allen does not have the outcome of that study. So squarely The ball, I suppose, is in the courts of First Nations relations and Dalton, when that will be finalised. So I can't add any more than that. But all I can say, there was a legally valid planning permit issue, and that has not been challenged by anyone. That permit is still valid.
Under the Commonwealth Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act, land that is adjoining or land that is affected by, with even private land, that may affect cultural heritage must not proceed without a cultural heritage management plan.
Well, hang on, wait, I'll just stop you there because those issues would have been taken into account at the time when the original planning permit was issued. All relevant legislation and all relevant referral authorities were contacted and they had their opportunity to have input and say, and after that had occurred, the planning permit was issued. So that's what, I'm not here to debate you, I'm just saying that's the process and that's the outcome. So I think that's sufficient in terms of that response. Now, the other one you refer to is the Sea Lake, the off-road rally. It's fair to say that council passed a motion at its last meeting that council send a letter of support in principle for the Sea Lake Off-Road Club's endeavour to have the Null rally returned to the site of Lake Tyrrell for 2023 and beyond. It's just purely and simply a letter of support to, I suppose, say to them that they do have the support of council, which they want to proceed on private land. So that, in terms of that, I don't think it'd be fair to say that there was anything more sinister than that, that we support their endeavours to find a way forward.
We're not saying anything is sinister.
I suppose that what's the name, the intonation of the question basically would sort of say that, you know, the Shire's unanimous support approval reinstate. We're not saying we are going to reinstate it. We're just basically offering support to an early rally, and support the options, and that they do have our support to look at that option. So again, it's a matter of, I suppose, how you want to see it from that sort of thing.
If I just may say finally, please, that Barinji Gadgin, which is the traditional owners First Nations people for the southwest of Tyrrell, say that they expected a cultural heritage management plan to be produced and one hasn't been produced. The other thing is that, again, in relation to land adjoining or being affected by a significant natural asset, cultural heritage asset, under the legislation should be considered as having a cultural heritage management plan. So, sir, are you saying that we should go to the state relations, First Nation state relations, Aboriginal Victoria, whatever you want to coin it, and delve in relation to those matters, because our First Nations people are very concerned in relation to those matters?
All I'm saying is that the council, in principle, support the endeavours of the off-road rally club to look at options to bring the rally back to an area of proximity to, if you like, the lake. That's all we're saying. Now, having said that, there is a lot of work going on in the background, one way or the other, and I'm sure the matters that you raised will be considered by the organisers, and certainly some of the things they will investigate. But of course, they need to know that there is some support from the council to look at their endeavours, and that's what we're given some options to support it. So nothing more than that. I mean, it's not, if you like, an event we run, it's run by the community. So that. Now, the other one, in terms of, I suppose, a meeting with the First Nations people, etc., we are, if you like, waiting for some advice from the Department of Environment, Land and Water in regard to a range of issues which I know are included in, if you like, background stuff there. once we have that information again, we will certainly be sitting down. And it was, I suppose, one of the things that we looked at through NAIDOC that we wanted to do, and I know staff have worked very hard on this, is actually to get councillors on country to sit down with the registered Aboriginal parties, so they were obviously verification and don't go wrong, so that we can further those discussions in an environment which is comfortable for all of us. So once that advice has been received from the department, we'll certainly be furthering that, if you like, on country meeting with the traditional owners through here.
And so the traditional owners, First Nations people have been involved in witch proof and other matters, for example, Mount Buckingham, since 2015, July 2015. So First Nations people working group that works in respect of Dirrell, witch proof, etc., would appreciate being included, and they're not in general included in communications from the Shire. Will that happen?
I'll take that on board. I mean,
Thank you.
As you can appreciate, working through the issues with our traditional owners is fraught with a lot of, I suppose, who do we actually talk to make some sense.
Yes.
I understand that, but of course, there, I suppose we have had the pleasure of having a chat online, and I know from that particular chat online, there can be issues in terms of communication as to find out, are we communicating with, if you like, the correct people that we should be communicating with? And that's not always easy. And we take that advisement back to our discussions. But we will certainly, when that time comes, sit down in all good faith with everybody to further those discussions.
So I know that Mr. Bobby Nichols wishes to speak, and that would be in respect of the other matter, which question.
The third question from Mr. William.
Okay, right. Okay, I'm happy to.
Thank you.
Nichols. Yep.
Thank you.
I want to stand and ask you. Well, first I'd like to acknowledge the traditions on the land that we're meeting tonight. We are on a three-way corner, I suppose, in terms of who has connections to this country. We're talking in terms of Wirragaya, Buloke. We're talking about Barabba, which is in Iran, and we're also talking about Darjah. Now, I have connection to all three of those groups. So I speak with authority when I do talk, and I'm speaking in regards to Darjah Run is a RAP application. Buloke is a RAP application which has been approved by the Heritage Council. And we've got Barabba, which is unwrapped, which has not been approved because of First Nations Legal and Research Services not supporting that traditional owner group. And there's many more others that have not been approved by the Heritage Council. But I'm not here to dispute as to whether a RAP exists or not. I'm here to talk about two things. The emus, which we've had meetings about, and one of the things, and the questions is that the costings for the Southern Fauna and Ecology draft report and costings as directed by Child and Tourism Inc. As chartered accountants of the organisation submitted a response to the draft emu management report, acknowledged orally or Anthony Judd, who was previously the CEO, I believe. Was that correct?
Correct.
Or the former. That's one. I request a meeting. Well, when I say I talk on behalf of not only my family, the Nichols family, but I also talk on behalf of Mr. Gary Murray and his family, and I also speak on behalf of Mr. Joseph Cameron, who has connections to this country here. And one of the things that I said at the meeting some time ago was that the emu is very precious to us, as well as not only my family, but also Pastor Sir Douglas Nichols. That is our totem. if you're all aware that each clan, tribe, language group has a totem. We don't come under just one totem. We all have our own totem. If you look at Barak, it's the bat. If you look at Dagara, it's the Kwa, black crow. So in answer to that, is that one report? Are you prepared to, including yourself, Mayor, are you prepared to meet with traditional owners to discuss the situation that we've got here with those MUs? Because we've inspected it previously, there has been people trying to let the MUs out. There's foxes. I believe that there was a report done that someone would be going there with, to eradicate rabbits. I believe that someone was going to go there with ferrets. Now, we offered one of our own people to come and do that, but we've got no response back. So, what is the proposal in regards to the management and protection of these sacred MUs on Mount Fish trees? That's the question I'm asking.
Well, I could quite simply answer that in terms of my understanding is there's been numerous meetings held between health, traditional owners, veterinary people and council, etc., to look into the matter and to come up, and that those discussions are ongoing. There's been no decisions made. Certainly, issues in regard to, I suppose, the protection and the safety of the emus is ongoing. There have been changes made to the fencing and other protective measures for the emus. But to give you a complete rundown, I'll ask the indulgence that staff prefer the time to send back all the information to you, all the actual things that we've done to do that. And as I indicated before, once we've had further discussions with health and others, there will be an on-country meeting to progress what will happen with the safety emus down the track. There have been a number of options proposed. The feedback we are getting at council is there is a preferred option for the emus, but that needs to be a preferred option amongst all parties, not just some. So I would ask staff to respond to your question in a timely manner, Mr. CEO, written back to I suppose Charlton Tourism would be a contact in regard to that, to answer that question. Certainly, it's a topic of the sacred areas. It comes up constantly at council meetings, and the councils can back me up on this. It is something that's under discussion just about every meeting as to an update of where we're at with that situation. We're acutely aware of the interest in this area, and I think whilst there's been no decisions made, those decisions that will be made will be taken with the involvement of all parties.
So when you say all parties, is that just all parties, or is that in terms of Aboriginal parties as well?
All parties. So Delta First Nations, those that we seek advice from, so that people like we've had veteran advice and all these sorts of things, we've taken into account in terms of the ongoing, I suppose, protection of the emus. So it's just, I mean, the issue, and you quite rightly touched on it just before, if we look at Mount Fish, there is no registered Aboriginal party. This makes it, and as you would be aware, very difficult to get a consensus around the table of the way forward.
Your table or our table?
That table, that round table. Because I mean, that's the issue. I mean, and it is very difficult when there is not a registered Aboriginal party to deal with. And this is the direction we're being given by First Nations relations. This is not something we just make up. We take our direction from there. So it's not a very easy road. And I don't know, staff or someone can probably refresh our memory how long this discussion has been going on at this stage.
2015.
2015. So you can see these things take time. So I would ask for your, I suppose, indulgence, so staff will get that information back to you. And certainly when that discussion is convened, and you will be certainly invited to the discussion.
So how often then, when you have, like we mentioned about the veterinary checks for the engines and whatever like that, we haven't cited any of those types of reports.
I'll get staff to
Now is, excuse me, I've allowed you to have your say, allow me to have my say as an additional owner.
I've just told you up there, this is my meeting. I'm in charge of this particular place. I don't want to cut you short, but I think part of the council question time is to answer. If we can't answer it, we will get the information to you so that we can move forward. So we'll take that in. I mean, these reports will get back to you to make sure you have all that information.
I've got two questions. One is, when will the Shire complete a cultural heritage management plan for equity proof and the Indians?
When will we?
When do you do that?
I'll take that on advice, but it's nothing that's on our radar.
We have asked this previously before.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that based on what we currently know. It's my understanding that the Friends of the Mount Ritchie group are currently looking for funding opportunities for the state government to be able to undertake the CHMP. Council has no budget in this financial year to be able to make a contribution to that. We're hoping that will be externally funded.
Well, I think if you talk to Dr. Di Smith, she will provide funding for you, the Shire, and or us to do a cultural heritage management plan.
And through you again there, so I know that Travis particularly has had a number of conversations with Dr. Smith, and they will continue. At this stage, no money has arrived on our doorstep, so we wait for that money to arrive, at which point we'll be more than happy to take that CHMP.
Because it's getting to a stage now where we're getting frustrated, and when I say we, us as traditional owners, whether we're traditional owners with a RAP or whether we're a traditional owner without the RAP being approved by the Heritage Council. Now, we've already stated through correspondence to use that there is a state application in terms of to ensure that those areas are properly protected. Now, if that's not adhered to, or we seem to be working in good faith, working in a collaborative way to come to a good solution or an outcome for these end users. You know, it's the same as Lake Tyrrell. We're prepared to go to the Commonwealth. We've already got an application waiting. Now, it's just a matter of the outcomes or the responses that we get from the mayor and the councillors.
Can I just hold up there? As I indicated, this is my meeting. There is opportunity for questions. I don't like my meetings to be, and I find that your language to say those things is of a threatening nature.
Not a threatening nature.
Well,
It's a process.
Well, it might be a process, but you're using it as a threat to the council. Now, I've indicated to you that we'll answer the question. Staff will give those further information to you. I think we've been more than accommodating in this matter in answering your questions provided earlier. So I think at this stage, our correspondence will be forthcoming.
Yes.
And I thank you for your attendance.
Are we, one final question, are we permitted as traditional owners to get a copy of the minutes of this meeting?
You certainly am. Yeah. They will be available online.
Thank you for giving time to speak.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
That's it for question.
Question 5. Thank you. Thank you for that participation. Moving through our agenda, a report of council assemblies. Councillors, we have a note that we report on the council assemblies held on the 1st and 15th of June 2020. Councillors, do I have someone to note those notes, please?
No.
Councillor Getley, as a seconder. Councillor Pollard, thank you. No opposition. No council vote. Thank you, councillors. 7.2, correspondence initiated by council. Council, we note a record of correspondence made, issued by council and the responses received. This, from memory, I believe that we discussed whether we need to colour some of these.
Yes, Mayor, some have, but not all, so we'll have another colour that over the next one.
Thank you. Can I have someone to note those, please?
Happy to do that, Mr.
Councillor Leon, Councillor Gifford, thank you. 7.3, letters of congratulations and recognition of achievement awards. Council, we do have a acknowledge congratulation persons of groups mentioned in the report, and we have a letter of acknowledgement to go to Stacey and Wayne Morris at the Love Shack, Giftware and Donald, who were the the winners of the inaugural Australian Rural Business Awards. Great effort for a very small bricks and mortar little shop in Donald.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we will be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Councillors, are there any other ones that we need to slip in there that you might have knowledge of? No?
Mr. Mayor, there is one that I should follow up. Nolan Hogan, resident of Northern Plains, participated in a walk in the Northern Territory recently, but I'm slack at getting the information where it's got to go, so I will get that, and if I don't get it this time, I'll nominate next time.
Okay, well, I'll note.
Yeah.
Now, so councillors, we do have someone, have someone to acknowledge and congratulate those, if I can have some. Councillor Pollard and Councillor Ketley, no opposition, that's carried, thank you, councillors. 7.4, building permits monthly update. When's the technical services? Oh, come on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a summary update of matters approved by surveyors from the period 1st of June to 30th of June. Council.
Council, we have, I suppose, at this stage, any questions, councillors, on the building permit monthly update?
Maybe just a comment for you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
That it seems to be ramping up again. It went quiet for a while, and there's a number of sheds and number of dwellings included again, which is good. So great to see some activity in that department again, and that means work for the Shire, employees in the Shire, and surrounding no doubt. So yes.
Council, so we do have a recommendation to note the information contained in the report. If there's someone to move that we note that first. Councillor Pollard, will do that in a second.
Happy to do that, Mr. Mayor.
No opposition, thank you, councillors. 7.5, planning application to receive monthly update. Again, works and technical services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, a procedural report outlining an information status update on planning applications that are currently being considered by staff, including the status of each of these applications.
Any questions, councillors?
I do have one, Mr. Mayor, please. The Correct Road, oh no, that'll answer itself, my apologies. The Correct Road Donald identification sign does answer itself when I read it. Oh, no, sorry, the one I was looking for was PPA 982-22 constructed to display a business identification sign on Culloch Street. Yeah, look, and my question will be, is that, it's not one of those display signs
No.
that anybody can rent, it's
No.
something to do with the
Business
business?
related to an existing business, is my understanding, but I'll get some more detail.
Thank you very much. It's fine. Probably if I go and read the briefing notes, it might explain.
Might be, maybe, I don't know.
I'll check it. And I do note that there are some double ups in that report.
Yes, yeah, noted as well. Yeah.
Council, we do have some information on that. That's someone that the council get. Yeah. Thank you for the movement, councillor. Right. Now, that's duly noted. Thank you, councillors. 7.6, status of action of past council meeting resolutions. The next one's going to be. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is for noting, which is just illustrating the activities that have been undertaken as a result of council resolutions in previous meetings.
Any questions, councillors?
All answered.
Yeah. So we do have this report to note, councillor. Someone who wants to move and second that, so we can note that, please. Councillor Gifford, councillor Pollard. Thank you very much, councillors. No opposition. 8.1, we don't have any policy reports. 8.2, management reports. 8.2.1, community grants and sponsorship.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, the first one, Charlton Golf Club sponsorship. I am a director of North Central Financial Services Limited. North Central Financial Services Limited have provided sponsorships and trophies for this event. Therefore, I'm declaring a conflict of interest in this matter, and we'll leave the room.
Thank you, councillor Getley.
Mr. Mayor, as we now don't have a quorum, can I please suggest that we hand it back to the staff to administer, because they've gone through it, they've complied with things, and let the senior management team.
Through the meeting, can't do it because you haven't got a quorum.
Yeah, we've got four. So basically, we have another plan. This plan B is that this matter will now lapse for want of a quorum, and
Sorry, Mayor, I was just thinking up there to go to the third matter. The matter's not been lapsed. Green.
Yes, so there's no action maybe taken with respect to this matter. It will need to be referred to the next scheduled council meeting.
that's good. So we'll refer this to the next council meeting. So if we can bring councillor Getley back, we might get a quorum back and continue with the meeting.
And Mayor, if I may, just inform the returning councillors that this matter has been deferred until such time as we can establish a quorum and a subsequent meeting.
This gives us something different, doesn't it? Yes, you know, as they say, be wary of the small agenda. 8.2.2, draft governance rules 2022. Says works and technical services here. But I'm referring to the wrong ad.
Well, she.
I have a big head, Mr. Mayor.
You said that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, recent amendments to the Local Government Act require that the council make provisions in its governance rules to enable virtual attendance by councillors at council meetings and any meetings of delegated committees, whilst we have none. These amendments must be effective from the 2nd of September this year. The draft rules that are presented to the council this evening have been revised to allow for that virtual attendance, and council officers also take the opportunity to make minor adjustments to other aspects of the rules to ensure they continue to reflect the council practice and preferred practice, including proposed adjustment to the order of business to enable confidential matters to be heard at the end of the meeting. Prior to council adopting the final version of the rules, it must release the draft rules to the community for consideration and feedback in accordance with our community engagement policy. This report recommends the council note and release the draft rules in accordance with the provisions of the Act.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh. Councillors, any questions?
No. Straightforward.
Councillors, we have a recommendation. The council note and endorse the draft governance rules 2022 for release through the council's community engagement policy. Do I have someone to move that recommendation, please, councillors?
I'll move that recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Pollard, a seconder. Councillor Getley, a second. Any opposition? That is carried. Thank you, councillors. And thanks, staff, for tidying up those. I mean, local government act is one that keeps giving, doesn't it? It just keeps giving. Anyway, we don't have any financial reports. Does that mean we're not financial?
We are very financial, Mayor, in fact.
Oh, good. Note that the CEO said that we are very financial.
In accordance with that budget.
Of course. 8.4, organisational reports. the 2022 Local Government Community Satisfaction Survey result. Okay. Righto. Jimmy Henry Experience is up next. Community development, and it's given.
Thank you, Mayor. I have explained to you that I can't play guitar right-handed, let alone left-handed. Through you, each year, the community satisfaction survey is coordinated on behalf of all Victorian councils by the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions. The 2022 result for Buloke Shire Council demonstrates an index score of 55, which represents a 7-point decline on last year's result, which arrests a trend of steady improvement that council has seen since 2016. Council's best performing areas were council's COVID-19 response, recreational facilities, and appearance of public areas, which are long-term high scorers for us. Whilst on the other side of the coin, the poorest performing areas were again deemed unsealed and sealed roads. Council, tonight we bring you the results of the 2022 Local Government Community Satisfaction Survey.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbon. Councillors, any questions? Councillor? No.
Maybe just a comment through you, Mr. Mayor, that yeah, disappointing that we've dropped a few points in this survey. I guess if you delve into the timing of the survey and what might have been going on at the time around the Shire, it probably explains some of the results. But I guess it is disappointing that after all the good work we've done since 2016 to be up steadily inclining, that we've got a decline now, which I take it seriously, but I think there's some easy answers in there for us to some low-hanging fruit that we can pick and improve on for sure. But it is, I guess, the one thing that I have concern with in this whole thing is that, and while it's consecutive over years, it's asking the same group of people or the same communities the questions. It does leave out a couple of communities, major communities, in the survey, and I just wonder whether that, you know, if you get one community that's really down on you at the point of survey, then it does skew the results to somewhat if you were surveying the 5 major towns and anybody else in between. That, and I guess that's, you know, it's just a concern that I've had for a number of years. Have voiced it before, understand why it's done like it's done, because it's a pattern. And I guess it'll cost an arm and leg more to include more people. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, yes.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. It still throws out challenge in our road network. I'll just leave it like that because we're just getting hit again.
It does throw a challenge.
So, comments. Be assured Mr. Fitzgibbon that if we were the board of the football club, we'd have a review of the football department at the moment undertaken. They won't have a finish, mate. Thank you, Councillor. So we did have a recommendation that we note the results of the 2022 Local Government Community Satisfaction Survey, considers future actions in response to the results, publishes the results of the survey to the community. Do I have someone to move that recommendation, please, councillors? Councillor, get me to move it. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, happy to do that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Will. Any opposition, councillors? That's okay. Thank you, councillors. I suppose we do have, I mean, maybe we could do something like average it out over 6 years. You know, I mean, that'd be impressive. Anyway, 8.5, reports from councils. Councils. So, I'll start that in the table.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Mills.
Just a couple of things, Mr. Mayor. Couple of Birchip items. Certainly met with Birchip Kinder parents with regard to more space at the kindergarten, and we talked about that the other night at the briefing, and met with regard to Birchip Silo Art, which is gaining some momentum at this point in time on the silo there through grain flow, and and some locals that are undertaking a campaign to get that done. Have been involved in the Buloke Fire Management Plan workshops, a couple now online and one actual here in Mitchie at the fire station, to come up with some updated plans, given that we haven't had that management team working for some time. Also had some major highway improvement committee yesterday, which proved to be another meeting we couldn't get a quorum for, unfortunately, with illness, whatever else. But a number of things coming out of that will come out in the minutes, and I'll provide that to the bulletin. And one that's coming up, which that I consider fairly important, is the Wimmera Valley Tourism Board strategic plan released to stakeholders coming up next Tuesday in Buloke, which is a big push towards Wimmera Valley tourism becoming a standalone entity, if we can push it that far in the future. So looking forward to releasing that with the marketing plan being explained on the day as well, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quite a month for town meetings, but I attended the opening of the St John Monash Memorial in Charlton, along with your good self, Mr. Mayor, and followed that up with the opening of the Change Forever exhibition at the Charlton Hall, again with yourself and with Mr. Fitzgibbon. Last Friday, there was a WDA Zoom meeting to discuss the census results, and again, Mr. Mayor and the CEO were present at that meeting. And also had a phone hook-up with the executive of Advanced Sea Lake prior to our last briefing, and a phone hook-up with the Mallee Catchment Management Authority regarding the return of the water to the Weir Pool and Billabong at Culver. And it was the regular briefings and meetings, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickey. I suppose, thanks, councillors. Just probably two little snippets, and one is not so much a snippet. In company with the CEO, I attended the MAB State Council in Melbourne on the 24th of June. It's pleasing to announce that after many years, we now have one vote, one council, which was put up by Gary and accepted by Buloke Shire. So we've got our fingerprints all over it. There was a bit of opposition. There was some very, what would you say, self-centered and rather entitled councils in Melbourne that they wanted to give us. They wanted us to give up something. I don't know what they wanted. Our parking meters. I don't know. I reckon it should have been the other way. But look, apart from, I suppose, the plethora of, I think there were 90 particular motions put up for discussion. We did finish on time, which surprised me, but I think from our point of view, that vote there that's been there for many years, we have now right across the industry, one council, one vote, and so that was really good to see that go through. I mean, I think the room was receptive to the whole idea. I mean, it wasn't a tight vote. It was about 75%. That way, so they accept the fact. The other one I just wanted to quickly touch on was the Virgin Civic Centre Master Plan public meeting held on the 22nd. A very well attended meeting, well conducted, very respectful, and I think those that attended got a lot out of it. Great. I hope, well, I know it didn't dispel some of them, but it at least put all the cards on the table. And I suppose the staff, as a group, we undertook to give that survey to all households in Virgin. And I'll check in to see that that's just about done. But you can just let you know where we're at. That'd be good. And on a, I suppose, more lighter note, I chaired the AGM of the Buloke Membership, which is always a very pleasurable morning out. I mean, to go along there, and the first thing they ask you is, have you bought a fruit cake? So I'll table that for, and that's good to see that the boys are working well, and they've come up with some great ideas. Which I like the idea of the copper separating machine there, right? So if you're missing any, I suppose, pipe or wires or whatever that's copper, have a look at the old bench shed first. that's probably where it will be.
Can supply them with quite a bit.
Good stuff. So that's hard. Moving along, other business. 9.1, notice of motion. We have a notice of motion regarding the solicitation of council list. Council Getty, I believe, that's what your fingerprints on this.
Certainly has, thank you, Mr Mayor. Pretty self-explanatory, as we all know, Councillor Lewis resigned on the 30th of June 2022, and this notice of motion is just to express council's appreciation for his dedication and service to Buloke Shire over the 5.5 years or so he was here, and particularly his representation of the ratepayers and residents of the Mallee Ward. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Getty. You have a second to that motion. Councillor
Second.
Collard, move that. Any opposition? That's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. 9.2, questions from councillors. Councillor, any questions this side?
Just a quick question, Mr Mayor. We've got a few of our tractors getting a little bit old out on the road surfaces and losing their reliability. I'm just wondering at any stage when we're looking at getting our tenders in so as we can start leasing some new tractors.
Mr Mayor, thank you. I don't believe.
Take it on notice if you like.
Yes, I will get back to you with further detail. I don't believe we have a capital budget allocation for purchase of tractors at the moment, following the internal audit on plant utilisation rates from a couple of years ago. Part of the decision making process for us will be whether we do an outright purchase or go through a lease arrangement. So we're going through that process with this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's just concerning to me because the reliability of at least two of them is not good. They've done over 10,000 hours and you normally don't take a tractor over 5.
Thanks. Any other questions, councillors? 9.3, urgent business. We have none that is advised. Thank you. 9.4, any other business? 9.41, interstate travel, Councillor Mill. That's your name, all right, but would you like someone to speak on your behalf?
I'm happy to speak on it.
Thank you, Councillor Mill. Yep.
Mr Mayor, it's an opportunity that Wimmera Mallee Tourism Board has been afforded by the Limestone Coast in South Australia. We have a memorandum of understanding with those people and that area that to work together, and they have a stand at the Adelaide Caravan and Camping Show coming up at the end of July. They've asked us to be on their stand with them and to promote our area. With trips from Adelaide into, basically it's Adelaide to Melbourne. Unfortunately, the map that's going to be up display shows from Melbourne to Adelaide, and I can't get it changed, but it is an opportunity for us to showcase what we have in the Wimmera Mallee Tourism Board area, and peddle our wares, so to speak. So the expenses will be picked up by Wimmera Mallee Tourism Association, and anything else will be that's overhanging will be covered by myself, Mr. Mayor. So
thank you, Councillor.
and that is on the 29th. So it runs from the 27th to the 31st. I'm rostered on the at the moment on the 30 and 31st, but that could change with one withdrawal maybe for the 29th. So, but other members of the board are on before that as well. So.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor,
I believe that we Councillor will travel to Adelaide. I think it'll be fantastic for our area.
thanks, Councillor. Mr. Collard? That's everything. No opposition? No.
I just want to know if Councillor Mill will be bringing back some limestone coast craves for us.
Well, can we do the contra on the side?
Only if you promise to declare them, Councillor.
I'll declare the show for the room.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff.
Thank you. Up to point 10, which is meeting closed at 19:58. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff, and thank you for the audience for sticking with us. I hope you learned something tonight. Our next meeting will be Next one, Bill.
Too old.